I'm good. How are you?
I like your haircut.
I like your haircut too. Are you in New Zealand now?
Yes. Yes.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm in Japan now. This is why,
Yes.
the
Japanese
behind the
background.
see, very Japanese.
So how long will you be in? You'll be there until February then?
Yeah, on the 10th, I will be leaving.
Okay. Back to
So
France.
another two times. I hope I can join on the live. But after that, the last two is I think I'm gonna see the yeah, recording because it was still early in the morning
Yes.
there. So yeah.
Yes, I imagine. Yes, I imagine. Well, that's okay.
Yeah, but thank you very much. It's very, very, very useful because I really feel I needed a recap,
Yes.
So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Well, it
By
is.
the way, the
Yeah.
yeah.
Go ahead.
By the way, the recording
Mm.
you going to give us is there is a like a limitation the date like to like a expire date to we have to watch or
No, it's
oh
gonna
really oh
it'll stay
that's
on.
wonderful.
Yeah, it'll stay on the site and in the place that that is, it will
Oh
become a
cool,
series. Yeah, yeah. So
cool, thank you very much.
the other thing is that it'll eventually also it'll be on our YouTube channel. So the NLP
Ah,
Singapore, NLPA Singapore, it'll be on the YouTube channel. So right now
okay.
it's unlisted so that people join
Mhm,
the webinar. But once the
mhm.
series is finished, then we'll open it up and people can go back and view.
Ah, okay, cool, yay.
All right, let's get started because it's that time to get started. I'm just yeah, awesome. Everybody's muted now. Cool. Great. So I'm going to start just by sharing my screen and my great little screen helper here. All right, my presentation for today. So I want to do a very, very quick recap of what we talked about so far because it's really important that we understand that we're basically layering things on top of each other. So layering knowledge one at a time on top of each other. So the NLP model, that's what we talked about in our first week. And what that was is we looked at this model where we have an understanding that we have five senses that collect information, and there's way too much information for our brain to actually capture. And so our brain distorts and deletes and generalizes that information. Then it gets into our head as sort of an internal representation of what's sort of left, an image. And those internal representations then create and change our state, which is our way of being at any given moment. And our way of being is our physiology, as well as our emotions and our thoughts. So that's really important to understand. And then we also have what's the result of that is, of course, our behavior. And that's what we say and how we say it, our actions, like the actions that we take and the strategies that we use. All right. So what we also talked about last week was in these five senses. In NLP, we're very concerned about the three that I've highlighted here, which is our sight, our hearing, and our touch. So our visual sense, our auditory sense, and our kinesthetic sense. Now, in NLP, we look at kinesthetic being both a feeling of touch as well as a feeling of emotion. And we also talked about how this generalizing, deleting, distorting part makes up what we call our map of reality, or our map of the world. And so what we want to understand is this is where our mental maps or our mental programs come from, is specifically how our brain distorts and deletes and generalizes information. So sometimes when I'm speaking to someone, I can instantaneously tell which of the mental programs that their brain distorts or deletes or generalizes most often. And so that's an interesting thing for us to know when we look at that. Now, once we put that all together, we have what we call our map of the world. And so we understand that our map is different from someone else's map of the world. And that is also different than what we would refer to as the actual reality. So in NLP, we have a presupposition, a saying or a statement that we presume to be true that's called the map is not the territory. So in other words, our map of the world is not actually what the reality was. It's not the territory. It's not actually what it was. It is a deletion or distortion or generalization, and how our brain does that of that territory. So it's really important to understand that when we're in a conflict or we're in a situation with somebody and there's a misunderstanding or something, it's often because of the fact that we're looking at the same situation or the same event from two different maps of the world. So this is, for me, the easiest thing to understand other people's weird behavior, because I just sit there and think, well, they have a very different map of the world than I do. I remember when I started coaching in Singapore, my first client hired me to help her with a new strategy of how to cheat on her husband and get away with it, because she was feeling that she wasn't getting away with cheating on her husband anymore, and she wanted me to help her. Now, of course, that is not my map of the world, right? I don't agree with that map. But just because I didn't agree with her map didn't mean I couldn't help her. And so what I did was actually help her to understand that potentially her map was really frustrating, really confusing, really hard to live with. And then once she kind of looked at that map that way, then she said, I wonder why this map came about this way. And then once she was able to go, okay, let's go find out why it's there. Then when we found out why it was there, she didn't want to have that map anymore. And she chose to have a different map. And that also meant she chose not to cheat on her husband anymore. So again, I didn't have to tell her her map was wrong, right? All I had to do was show her what her map actually looked like. And so that's really important. Now, what we're going to look at today is this concept of present state and desired state. Now, present state and desired state are terminology that we use in NLP. Nobody else uses this stuff. So we call it our PS and our DS. And any NLP person knows PS and DS. And so oftentimes we will refer to PS as a problem state or a present state. And DS is always the desired state or an outcome or a goal of what we want to do. And this is like an NLP formula. And it doesn't look so much like a formula right now, so just wait, we'll get there in a minute. We want to understand these concepts a little bit better before we bring it into this. Now, our PS being where we are now, where we're beginning our journey. And the reason that we're beginning a journey to change is because we recognize that our present state or our problem state isn't where we want to be. And once we have that, we can then realize that we need something different. We may not have the desired relationships that we want in our life. We may not be in the desired career that we want in our life. We might not have the level of wealth we want, or we also might have problems or issues or be in a state of health that's not where we want to be in our life. And so what we want to make sure of is that we then look at the other side, which is our desired state. And this is where we're going to go now. We're going to look at what desired state is. Our desired state is obviously our outcome or goal. Now let's get to more of this formula part. The formula, this is how it sort of happens. We understand where we are, and we understand it's not where we want to be. And we know that we need a strategy of how to get to where we want to go. We need some sort of plan. And that strategy and that plan is one of our resources that we're going to use to get from our present state to our desired state. And we also understand that there are going to be challenges that we're going to need to overcome to get to our desired state. And we need to anticipate some of those challenges so that we can put resources in place that may help us to overcome those challenges on the way. Now, in addition to that, By anticipating some of the challenges, we also might be able to reorganize our strategy or a plan to be able to avoid the challenge in the first place. So that's also a really good way for us to be able to look at our challenge in advance and be able to come up with a really great plan of how not to even go there. Now, we might expect that there is also going to be a need to acquire some resources that we don't already have along the way. And those might be resources that help us to get to our desired state, or they might be resources that help us to overcome challenges that we may not have expected along the way. Now, as a result of us taking us from our where we are right now, putting a strategy and a plan together, gathering our resources, understanding our challenges, then that will eventually, by continuing to do that over and over again and take action, then we're going to get to our desired state. And that's what we're going to talk about right now, is some things that people do when they think about their desired state or an outcome or a goal aren't necessarily the things that we want them to kind of think about when they're looking at an outcome or a goal. And for this, and for me to explain this, I need to kind of bring you to a timeline. And this timeline has, as it normally would, a past, a now, and a future. And so when people think about goals and outcomes, sometimes they get stuck not being able to achieve their outcome because it's rooted in the wrong place and time. And so let me explain what that might look like. So when somebody is rooted in the past, they're going to say things like what they don't want. I don't want to be broke. I don't want to be unhealthy. I don't want to be in this bad relationship. I don't like this job. So their focus is on what has been happening in the past. And when they're stuck in that past, what they're trying to do is get away from it. And we can't have outcomes that are based on the past. We have to have them based in the future, like towards where we're going. And the most important thing is that what we want to do is ask the question, what do we want instead? So let me give you an example. I'm on Orchard Road in Singapore, and I'm waiting at a taxi stand, which nobody ever does anymore, but just let's pretend that I'm waiting at a taxi stand. And I get in the taxi, and the taxi uncle says to me, "Where do you want to go?" And I say, "Well, I don't want to go to Changi, and I don't want to go to Yushin, and I don't want to go to Pasir Ris, and I definitely don't want to go to IKEA during the weekend. Just forget it. It's not going to happen." So I can tell him all of this, and it's not going to really tell him anything. And most likely the taxi uncle is going to throw me out of the taxi. And so that's really important to understand, that we don't want to explain or frame our goals based on stuff that we're trying to avoid. Always ask yourself, what do we want instead? Now, another thing that we don't want is things that are based in the now. So outcomes or goals that are based now. So these normally sound like affirmations. What we tend to hear is that we need to reaffirm ourselves and tell ourselves that we are wealthy, or that we are healthy, or we have good relationships. And we're looking in the mirror and we're having these sort of mantras. And we're supposed to say these things to ourselves. And I remember being in an Anthony Robbins event at 2:00 in the morning, and being on the beach, and we were all shouting and screaming at the top of our lungs. All I need is within me now. All I need is within me now. And that was really great. But it really didn't really help at all, actually. I mean, it makes you feel really good at the time. It doesn't really help you get to your outcome, though. It doesn't get to your goal. And the reason is because you're telling your brain you have already arrived. So what would it do for you if it already thought you got there? And so if you're already telling it, you're here, I am this, I am fit and skinny, I am wealthy, I am whatever. If it sits there and goes, it can argue with you and go, no, you're not, and that's not helpful. But the other thing it can do is go, okay, well, if you are, then why do I need to, me, the brain, why do I need to do anything? And so that's what we want to kind of avoid. We want our brain to be focused on helping us to get to whatever it is that we're trying to get to. Now, let's see. The other thing about affirmations is that research also suggests that saying things as statements isn't really the way that we get our brain to start working. It's actually much better if we ask ourselves questions. So this was some research done in psychology, and basically they found out that if you ask the question instead, then the natural resources of your brain of problem solving, because your brain loves to solve problems for you, it will enact that when we ask a question. So we don't say, I'm fit and skinny now. It's how can I get fitter or skinnier now? Or what can I eat today that would help me to be fit and skinny now? Or how could I go and exercise to be fit and skinny? Instead of saying all I need is within me now, I could say things like, how can I use all that's within me now? Or how can I improve all that's within me now? So these are the kinds of things that we want to be able to do for ourselves, is give our brain a project. And I tell my clients this all the time. My goal is for you to ask the question. My goal is not for you to go searching for the answer. I want you just to ask the question like you would say an affirmation, like over and over again, until your brain actually comes up with the answer. Because again, what we're trying to do is set it in motion of its natural problem solving ability. It does that naturally. So just ask the question, and you might have to ask a couple of times. Most people, though, will wake up in the morning and they go, oh, I have an answer. I have a way I could do that. It also directs our mind's focus, and our mind really loves to have that focus. In other words, it won't delete, distort, or generalize things that are related to your goal. So we'll get to that in a minute. All right. The other thing that a goal is not, or an outcome is not, is it's not a value. And so there's a difference between a goal and a value. So values are things that are important to us. And so it might sound similar to a goal, like goals could be important to us as well, but values are more things that are intangible, like happiness. So happiness is not something that we can hold. So this is a calculator. I can hold it. It's a thing. But I can't hold happiness. There's no possible way I can do that. Just like you can't hold anxiety nor depression. You can't have either of those two things, nor can you have happiness. So what we have in NLP is what is called a nominalization. It's a big word. You don't have to remember the word. What it means, though, is that somebody is taking a verb, an action-oriented thing, like being happy, which is a state of being, i.e. we're doing things, we're having thoughts, we're having emotions, we have physiology that is happiness, being in a state of happiness. That's a action-oriented thing. We're thinking, we're doing things, that's action. And so when we turn that verb into a noun and we try to make it something concrete, that's what we call a nominalization. So we don't want nominalizations as goals, because that's not a goal. I can't have a goal to be spiritual, because there's nothing sort of there that I can do, right? If I have a goal that says I'm fit or skinny, I can have measurements to fit and I can have measurements to skinny. So if you have an ability to measure spirituality for yourself, you are most likely going to start measuring things that you are doing. So action steps, right? Cool. All right. So we want to make sure that we are focused on those kinds of things rather than high vague values like happiness or affirmations or things that are in the past. Now, there's one other thing that does happen that people talk about that is future oriented, but still not a thing that we want to concentrate on when we're looking at outcomes or goals. And this is direction. And so when we think about direction, this is when somebody says, I want more something, right? I want more balance in my life. I want more money. I want better relationships. And so they're always using some sort of comparative word, more money, better this, right? They're using a comparative word. And the problem with this kinds of things is that it's not really specific enough. Excuse me. It's not really specific enough for us to be able to actually tell what the person wants. For example, if somebody comes into my office and says, I want to have more money, and I say, okay, great. Your goal is to have more money. And by the end of this session, if I can get you more money, would all the 6 sessions that you paid for, would it be completely worth all of that money if I could get you what you want right this second? And they said yes. And so I just hand them $2 bill and off they go. They have more money. And so again, they say, well, that's not what I meant. And I say, yes, of course, but your brain doesn't know this. And so it's really important that we stop ourselves from saying things like I want more or I am better. We want to have it more tangible. We want to have it more specific. And that's what we're going to talk about, specify. And we want that particular goal to be based in the future, right? So here in the future, not here in the now, in the future, that's where a goal needs to be. Now, it's really important we take a break at this point in time and talk about some neuroscience, because this is the greatest thing about neuroscience these days, is they have a tendency to talk about NLP stuff without saying NLP stuff. But they say things and I'm like, oh yeah, NLP's been doing that for like since the 1970s. But neuroscience is like, yeah, this is really cool stuff. And we're like, yeah, but we've been doing it since the 1970s. So one of the things that I want to get you to understand is that there's actually some areas of the brain that are specifically associated with goals and achieving goals. And the thing about it is it doesn't matter who it is, and it doesn't matter what the goal is about. The same 3 areas of the brain will always be used in goal orientation. And the first one is going to sound a bit weird, but it's one of the most important ones, and it's the amygdala. And most people understand that the amygdala is an area of the brain that's associated with fight or flight, so an emotional area of the brain. And it's interesting that this is an area that's used in goal setting because of the fact that it's actually the anxiety and the fear of avoiding something that is why the amygdala gets activated. And we're going to find out pretty soon why, because it has something to do with our motivation. Now, remember when I said we don't want to have things that are, I don't want goals, right? We don't want to say them in that way. Oftentimes, though, that is how it starts. That's the motivation. We're in a situation, a present state, a problem state that we don't want. And that's why we need to find our desired state. What do we want instead? That's really important for us to do. So now, the other area of the brain is called the basal ganglia. You don't need to know this, but this is the area of our brain where we have action or no action. So this is our area of our brain that's going to decide for you whether you're going to the gym that day or not. Okay, so that it's the one that's going to push the lever that says you're going to go and take action or you are not going to take action. And then we also have an area of our brain that's called the prefrontal cortex at the front of our brain. And this is the area of our brain, it's used specifically for goal setting, that it determines the difference between short-term goals, midterm goals, and long-term goals. So it's the place that tracks goals. So this is the area of our brain, which is typically associated with higher functioning, like the difference between right and wrong, good and bad, our decision-making, our analytical stuff. So this is the area of our brain that allows us to track a goal from short-term, mid-term to long-term goals. So that obviously is an important area of our brain to utilize during goal setting. And then we also have a place called the orbital frontal cortex. It's not important, but what's interesting about this is the part that brings in the emotion that goes along with present state and desired state. So the emotions of getting from our problem or present state to desired state, as well as regulating the emotions along the way from that journey from present state to desired state. Now, all the time in our mind, when we are trying to achieve a goal, there are two things that are going to be happening. And one of them is quite fascinating to understand because we just talked about it a little bit. And that is about value information. So the brain is constantly assessing our progress along the way of our goal. And it's constantly evaluating, is this goal worth pursuing or not? Is it important? Right? So we talked about values, and values are things that are important to us. So it's constantly looking at whether this goal is worth it or not. Now, the thing about it is most people associate, they talk about the big why. Why do you want this? And you have to have a really big why of why do you want this? The thing about it is, though, the why is not something you just do once. It's literally every step of the way, each and every moment in time. It's a constant evaluation that our brain is making. It's every action that we take. Is this goal that we have worth this particular action? So it's constantly doing a risk-reward analysis. Now, the actions are which actions we take or not take based on the perceived value that we have given our brain to get to the goal. And so when we're trying to get to the goal and the value is very high, and that's the perceived value in our mind, then we will be taking those actions. But if we are in a situation where we're struggling to label the importance, then the goal might not get achieved at that point in time, or there might be a misstep to the strategy of the goal. Now I'm gonna put this to you in a very particular sort of practical, down to earth, day-to-day sort of stuff. So yesterday I got up very early in the morning because I was in a different location than I needed to be, and I needed to drive about 2.5 hours to get to the location I needed to be because I had a presentation to give. Now, upon arrival, I knew that my day was going to be really packed, and there was going to be zero chance of me being able to do any kind of exercise or workout if I didn't do it straight away when I arrived. Now, when I arrived, we were talking about that go, no go, okay? And that area of our brain that says go, no go, okay? So you're going to take action or you're not going to take action. Well, that area is going because there's a constant evaluation. And the evaluation is two goals that are happening side by side to each other, and they're conflicting for value, right? Who gets the most important value? Is it Lindley preparing for this presentation she's going to give to the senior leadership team, right? And she's already prepared, the slides are already done, everything's ready to go, right? But does she want to just make that extra effort and make sure she's in the really good place and do the things that she wanted to do to get ready for that and just be in a really good place for that? Or does she want to go and do her exercises completely unrelated to this other goal? And so for me, it was literally a value, risk and reward. So the value of the exercise was extremely important to me. I'm on a 4-week training plan right now, and I love the training plan. I'm really into it. It's really great. And at the back of my mind, it says, well, there's always Sunday, and Sunday is a day off, and you could just switch Tuesday and Sunday, and your training plan is not screwed up. Okay? Because what's inside says it's more important that you walk into this presentation, you are calm, cool, and collected, and you feel ready to go. And if you go to that gym and you spend 2 hours at the gym doing what you were going to do, are you going to do that? So there was the risk. There's that risk. And my brain's constantly evaluating. Now, it may never have happened. I might have gone to the gym. I might have felt really great. I might have come home. I might have been perfect, right? But my brain's going, ooh, that sounds risky to me. And that risks me doing this other thing. And this other thing over here is super important. And so there's the conflict, right? There's the conflict between two goals and a value hierarchy that happened between that value struggle. So I want you to understand that those kinds of things are going to happen all the time. And we're going to make decisions, prefrontal cortex, we're going to make decisions on which thing to do. And then we're going to evaluate those decisions and were they the greatest decisions in the world? And so for me, I chose to be prepared for my presentation. I didn't go to the gym. And so that was really important for me to do. Now, the thing about it is, of course, is I woke up really early this morning after the presentation, redid a bunch of things for this group of senior leaders, and mailed everything out to them so they had it on their desk before 9 a.m. And so for me, that was like super added value, blah, blah, blah. And I was doing it in the car on the way to another location for another meeting. So somebody else was driving and I'm typing away, getting all of these PDFs done and things like that. And I skipped my exercises. And so my brain goes, there is no Sunday. We already got Sunday already covered because you skipped yesterday. So my brain goes, no. Now it's absolutely, it's 100% happening. So anything that I would have had on this evening after I have dinner or something like that has been thrown out the window because I am definitely doing the exercises and there's going to be no TV, no nothing, right? And so again, there's this what's valuable. And my brain goes, no, this is a go. This is important. I'm going to do this. And it becomes valuable. All right. Does anybody have any questions about how that value thing is sort of constant and we're always making those assessments? So I hope everybody gets that because it is something that most people don't actually consider. They understand that goals have a value association to them, but they don't necessarily know that there's a constant evaluation of that. Now, one of the things that we also want to make sure of is we talked about our goals being in this specify format. And what we mean by this, and in NLP, we call this a well-formed outcome. A WFO is the jargon that goes along with it. Or this is a sort of a newer concept in NLP, a specify model of a well-formed outcome. And so what we want to do is make it sensory specific. So our goal needs to be sensory specific. So what that means to us in NLP is this part. So remember we said it's visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Those are the three that we primarily look at from an NLP perspective. Well, that's what we want for our goals. So when we say sensory specific, we're thinking VAK, visual, auditory, kinesthetic. And so when I'm thinking of sensory specific for a goal, I'm thinking of things like, what does it look like? What do my behaviors look like? What am I doing to achieve this goal? What do I look like when I achieve it? If it's like a health or fitness goal, what does my bank balance look like when I achieve this? If it's a wealth goal, or my investments look like if it's a wealth goal. What does my relationship look like? How do conversations happen in that relationship if it's a relationship type of goal? So I want to be able to see it. In other words, we want to enact this part of our brain about our internal representations. Visually based internal representation, a visualization of our goal. And so visualizations of goals is not a new thing. It's been happening for a very long time. NASA taught a bunch of athletes to use visualization techniques for them to be able to do better at sports. They're also used in music and art. They're very actually quite important visualization techniques. We want to make sure that we have that visualization there, the image of what it looks like. The more detailed we can make it, the better. If it's super vague, your brain cannot track it very well. So it's important that you know. The other thing, so let's talk about auditory and kinesthetic, and then I'll talk about evidence. So auditory is what do we hear and what are we telling ourselves? So in a goal, for example, like a weight loss goal or something like that, it's people that might be saying to us, oh, you look thinner, or oh, you look so great in that dress, or whatever it is, right? So they're going to say something to you. Now, it also might be sounds, right? You hear a sound of a gun firing at the start of a 10K, right? That might be a part of your goal, and so that's what you hear. Or you hear a crowd, and because you are singing, and that's your goal. You want to sing in front of a crowd, and you hear the crowd all in applause. Or you hear your wealth advisor tell you that you're set for the rest of your life. Those are kinds of things that we're going to hear, and most likely we're going to hear them from other people, but we could hear just general sounds as well. And then there's also a sound that we're going to say to ourselves, or thoughts that we have to ourselves when we say things to ourselves. So I might say to myself, I'm really proud of you, or you've done a good job, or wow, that was really challenging. I'm really glad I've got through that. So I might say things like this to myself. So that's all part of auditory. And then we have this kinesthetic. And kinesthetic in this particular case refers to our emotional state. How are we going to feel when we're achieving our goal, or when we get to achieve our goal? And so again, we're trying to put ourselves into a state of that. Now, again, just to remind you, we're going back to this NLP model. The state is a way of being at any given moment, and that's our thoughts and our emotions and our physiology. So when I'm talking about it from a goal perspective, I still want to have those things. I want to think about what's my physiology and what's my thoughts, and what are the emotions that I have, and how does that all wrap up into this thing that I feel, a state of happiness or pride or excitement. So what is that? Because when I talk to somebody and I ask them about their goal and how they would feel, and they go, well, I probably feel happy. And then I know at this point in time that they're not actually feeling it right then and there. Like, they're not feeling that they're going to be very happy. So I want them to feel it more. And so I want to say, get into it and imagine it and hear it, and then feel that feeling, because that's really what it was. We really want to create that experience that we can actually feel it before we actually do it. It's called the as-if principle, if anybody hasn't heard about it. And if you want to read the book, Richard Wiseman, it's called the as-if principle. Really fantastic book. And we use that as-if principle quite a lot in NLP. It's also a extremely common principle in psychology, all of psychology. So evidence. So what sensory specific is it's basically talking about the evidence of what do we see, hear, and feel when we achieve our goal. What's the evidence? How do we know that we've achieved it? And so we're basically putting together evidence for our brain that says, you know, you've achieved this goal when ... happens, or you know you're on track to achieving this goal when ... happens. All right. So positive, that's just the fact that of this entire thing about the don't want, right? We don't want this kind of thing. Right. So that's the positive. We want it stated in the positive. I want something. And then ecological just means that our goal is not harming anybody else. So when I switched my diet, I had to actually sit down with my husband at the time and ask him about the change. And at first he was very sort of flippant, like, I don't care if you change your diet. And I said, wait, no, there's actually consequences to you for this. And I need you to think them through, because that means you can't just pick a restaurant, any restaurant. You have to actually look at the restaurant menu and see if there's anything on it that I'm going to be able to eat. And when we cook at home, that means that I'm going to be cooking all these vegetables and stuff like that. And if you want something else, you're going to have to think about that in advance, so I know, like, to buy it and pick it up and stuff like that. And so it took him a year and a half to get to the point of actually being able to remember to look at a restaurant menu before he made reservations. So yeah, so it took a long time. But again, ecological. I needed to think about how my goal was going to affect other people. Choice increasing just means that I get other things out of life because I've achieved this. So if I quit smoking, I might get better health. If I have a good investment portfolio, I might just have a very nice life, and it helps me to do all sorts of things like travel. If I improve my relationships, it might reduce my stress or might help me live longer. So all of those kinds of things there, we want to see sort of ripple effects to our goals. And then our goals need to be initiated by us, ourselves. Okay. And what I mean by this is if you have a goal to change somebody else, don't do that one. So you don't want to have a goal that says, I want my son to do really well and his A levels, right? So that's not a goal for you. That's not initiated by you. So when I talk to people, I want to make sure that they understand that the goal must be theirs. If you want to help somebody, then the goal needs to say something like, how can I want to be the best parent to help my child through A levels. And again, that goal doesn't have anything to do with the result that the child gets at A levels. You have no control over the result. It is not your result. It is your child's result. So you need to just own your stuff and take ownership of the responsibility you want to have. So that's really important to think about. Also, we want to have our first step identified because our first step helps us to get the ball rolling. And we also want to have our resources identified, the ones that we have and the ones that we need. Now, most people have seen this kind of thing, the sort of wheel, and they talk about balancing goals across all areas of life. And what I would like to suggest that perhaps you take a look at it from a different perspective, and you look at it from an integration rather than a balance. So some roles or some areas of your life will take up more time and energy than others. And that's okay as long as each of the areas of your life are integrated. And if you spend all your time working and your relationships are suffering, that's not integration. If you're very spiritual, but you're broke, that's also not integration. So what integration is, in what I'm talking about is building abundance in each of the areas of our life that will make us whole. And everybody else needs to remember it's everybody has a different map of what abundance is for them. And that's important to understand. My map of abundance for things might be very different than other people's map. And what I want to also get you to understand is instead of thinking about this kind of wheel thing, think about it more as the roles or the hats that you wear in life. And for me, I have a bunch of different hats in my world. So one of my hats is financial controller. So for me to make sure the bills are paid and make sure the investments are making money and make sure that taxes are paid and things like this. This is the role of that is my little CFO role of my household. Then I have my business role, and my business is very global right now. I have clients in Dubai, I have clients in Singapore, I have clients in New Zealand, I have clients in the United States, and so I have clients in Europe. And so I need to make sure that that this particular hat that I wear has some integration in it as well. And then I have the me one, which has to do with my health and my fitness, has to do with my nutrition. It also has to do, though, with my own learning and development. So I'm continuing to learn Japanese. So Yuki will be very excited to know. I am on my Duolingo every day doing my Japanese lessons, and I did my katakana homework. And yeah, so I do that every single day. And so that's really important for me. And strangely enough, Yuki, the other thing I did was start my French again, because I started watching a profiler a profiler show that's all in French, and I'm like, oh my God, this is great. Anyway, so so I started my French again as well. So it's and by the way, I'm doing both of those languages not because of the fact that I expect to go and live in France or go and live in Japan, though that would be very nice. I would love to do that. The reason is because I know that learning languages later in life is very important for cognitive power. And so it allows me to understand that I will help my brain to stave off things like Alzheimer's and dementia as long as I continuing to do things that challenge my brain. And languages, learning languages as an older adult is very, very challenging. And so it activates all sorts of different areas of your brain. And now with all of the computer programs and things like that, it's quite fun to do. And so it's something that is part of me, the role, the hat of me. And then I have my champagne glasses here represent my friends and family because that's my other role in my life, is to be part of the friends and family group. Now, because I live overseas and am expated in very different locations all over the world at times, friends are like family to me. So it's important to maintain all of those relationships really well. Now, last but not least, I'm going to bring us back to this present state, plus challenges and resources will get us to our desired state. When we visualize our desired state for readiness to start, right? We visualize our desired state. We say, this is what it wants to look like. So we talked about that in our specify model, sensory specific. We're going to visualize what it looks like, sounds like, and feels like. And that is very important to motivate you to get going. In fact, doing that really well will actually increase blood flow through your body, right? That's that anticipation. This is going to be really cool. The thing about it is it's not really great to continue your motivation. In fact, what we know now is that it's more important for you to focus for motivation on what would happen if you failed. And that's going to sound really, really strange. But what I want you to do is actually think more about the challenges, think more about not getting there, think more about what you're trying to get away from, to get you to motivate yourself, because what we want to do is activate the system. Remember I told you that the brain loves to solve problems? Well, we want to keep that activation of that problem solving going. We want to keep it activated because that is what is going to drive the dopamine to keep us going and keep us taking action on our goal. And it's not thinking about how rosy, sunshiny that thing is going to be. Occasionally, we do want to remind ourselves about the rosy, sunshiny end that we're getting to in our desired state. Most of the time, though, I'm really sorry to say this, but it's failure, actually, that is the thing that drives us to get there. We want to ask ourselves, what happens if we fail at the challenge? What happens if we fail at the desired state? We want to anticipate these kinds of things because, again, we activate our brain into action. Now, you need to make sure that you do this from a place of challenge and not overwhelm, right? So we want to stress ourselves a bit, like just outside of our comfort zone. We do not want to have anxiety about it, right? So this is the key aspect of goal setting, is that it's a super fine line between freaking yourself out about the failure so you don't do anything versus keeping yourself motivated to get there. And so it's a super fine line to be able to do that. And so you need to know yourself very well. And this is one of the things that I love about the NLP practitioner courses, because you get to know yourself really well in that course, and you get to experience what all of that stuff is for you, and you get to learn quite a bit about yourself, and lots of aha moments along the way. And so that helps us to be able to go and navigate that fine line to get us closer to our goals. That's really, really important to know. Just remember, if your heart and your blood pressure doesn't increase when you're thinking about your goal, either at the beginning for the desired state or in anticipation of challenges or not getting there, it's your goal's not big enough. You need to make that goal bigger. because we should, when I put a goal out there, my goal should be like slightly scary. I sent an email to a client of mine who is based at a casino. So she's one of the vice presidents at a casino. And I sent her a goal or a email, and it was one of those, it's like the Hail Mary. It's like I'm gonna throw this out and I'm gonna see how it goes, because this is the big tough thing, and if it fails, it fails. But if it succeeds, this is going to be really awesome. And it's just stretching me outside of my comfort zone, that if the person takes it up, it's going to be super scary, right? And that's what I want you to think about. I want you to think about something that is going to be just scary enough that gets you, it's like, ooh, this is going to be fun, super challenging. I might like pull my hair out a little bit, but we want goals like that. If there are goals that you already think that you can do, so remember SMART goals, what is it? Specific, measurable, achievable. Your brain does not do achievable. I'm sorry. Your brain does not get motivated if it already thinks you can achieve it. There's no motivation. There's no heart pounding. There's no nothing. You will most likely fail at that goal if you think you can already achieve it. It needs to be just outside of your comfort zone. It needs to scare you just a bit. So that's very important. Now, I say that a lot. I say important. It's very important. Everything in NLP is very important. I hope you understand. All right, here we go. Does anybody have any questions? And again, I will tell you all the resources. You can text me at that number there, which preferably WhatsApp, because I don't actually have my phone on when I'm overseas. Only WhatsApp is on. So WhatsApp or my email address is there. So if you have any questions, or you want questions answered for the future, or you have a problem you want solved in one of our future episodes, please let me know. If you have any questions now, yes, Yuki, please go.
Sorry, I just do the quick questions.
Yes.
Just now you show it to us past, present, future,
Yep.
and then there is an affirmation on the present. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's part.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you know or not, but like now a lot of Japanese
Yes.
actually we see the very importance of what's the words have the power,
Yes.
like we
Yeah.
say the spirit of the words. So this affirmation is actually quite number of the success people
Yeah.
recommend to
Yeah.
tell yourself, but like you say, like I'm fit and skinny, but if I'm not fit and skinny, that the brain is really, really, really conflict, and then there's
Yep.
very strong big say no, you are
Yep.
not.
Yep.
And so this is like a back and forth, and then a fighting by
Yep.
yourself.
Yep.
So that some of the people say if there is a so strong the rejection,
Yep.
like no, I'm not fit and the skinny,
Mm.
then some success people say, then just change the words like ongoing sentence. That means I'm going to something, something, something.
I'm going to be
So
fit skinny. Yep.
yeah, so that means now you are towards to that
Yep.
direction. Okay.
Yep.
So as a NLP perspective,
Mhm.
which one is the most easiest to brain to absorb, and then is cooperative to
Yeah.
myself to achieve the goal, like a present sentence, ongoing sentence, or future sentence?
It's the question. So it would be
Yeah,
the
the
least
question.
the least effective is the statement, right? That
Mm-hmm,
is the now statement. Um,
mm-hmm,
Having an ongoing statement, that's better,
mm-hmm,
definitely better, right?
mm-hmm.
The best one though is the question. And
Question.
again, yep, again, so in the statement, if there's an argument, and we are
Mm-hmm,
arguing basically with what's called an internal audience, right? Like an
mm-hmm,
internal group of people that are kind of calling bullshit, right? They're going, nope, that's not true. And I don't want to fight with that internal audience, because that internal audience has a lot to do with my self-confidence. So
mm-hmm.
I do not want to be fighting with that one, right? And so what I want to do instead is, if I do ongoing, right? I still have that internal audience watching me and watching what I'm doing and saying, are you really doing it? So they're watching. So if you're
Yeah.
saying it's ongoing, and you're going, I'm on my way to be fit and skinny, they're watching you and going, are you really? Versus if I say, how can I make choices about being fit and skinny today? The internal audience has no way of arguing with that because it's a question, right? So my internal audience is not going to affect my confidence. It's not going to affect my ability to feel good about myself, because what I'm just did is activated, instead of the internal audience, I've activated my prefrontal cortex and said, hey, help me find an answer for this. And so then I get to make choices because I keep making those, I keep asking those questions. And now I've directed my choice making. How can I do this? Or what can I do for this? I keep making decisions based on what's going to get me closer to that goal. And that's ultimately what we want to be doing in the first place. We want to be making really small decisions every single day that's going to get us closer to that goal. And so for me, I would be always banking on the questions. Anthony Robbins does, I think he uses a lot less affirmations now than he used to. But just think about it. If you go to an Anthony Robbins event and all of these guys, they ask questions to their audience members to bring out information and to get them excited about stuff. They ask questions. They do not make statements.
So that means like before statements, there is a process to ask the question. That is the most important. Then it's become the affirmation, and then become like this affirmation become ongoing, present, and no future, ongoing or present sense. So easily to change.
The lowest level of thing I'm going to say to myself as a statement, I'm fit and skinny. The next one is I'm going to be fit and skinny. I'm working on being fit and skinny. That's the next level up quality wise. And then the last level up, highest quality, asking a question. How can I? Yep. Highest level is going to be question. Because again, the other two levels, the lower levels, are always going to enact that internal audience that's watching to see whether I'm doing it or not, or arguing with me because it knows that I'm not doing it or I'm not there. So I don't want to enact that part at all. So if you think about it, it's enacting, it's an enacting that negative voice inside your head, and you don't want to enact it. So why would you want to do that? Like let's instead focus on using the parts of our brain that actually allow us to be able to get to someplace, and that's decision making. Because every time we are on a path to a goal, the thing that stops us from getting to that goal is making small decisions every single day. That's basically what it is. All right. There's a strategy. You make a decision to take action towards that strategy, or you don't. All right. So for me yesterday, I made a decision not to take an action to the strategy of exercise, but instead I chose really good presentation, which worked, right? And then I'm choosing to exercise today and go back on plan, and I'm going to choose to exercise on Sunday and replace Tuesday's exercise on Sunday instead of taking it a day off. And so those choices, if I make those choices, then my internal audience says, yes, you are on the way to the goal. I don't have to say it. My internal audience knows, it sees, right? If I don't make those choices, my internal audience goes, no, I don't believe you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool, something new. Thank you very much. This is very, very, very interesting because I see a lot of YouTube, and then there's a lot of people's like a saying, like a Japanese people.
Yeah.
Actually, question part, yes, they do, but not like this kind of the connection.
Yeah.
This is why I think a lot of people is confused, and then there's a lot of people say, okay, I'm doing this, I'm become this, and then the brain say no, very strong, big no. This is why I think a lot of people is give up, or maybe they're scared.
100%. And you know why? And you know why? It's their internal audience that goes, no, you're not.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Lindy.
My pleasure. All right, if there's no more questions, we're going to leave it here. Thank you very much, everybody who is attending live. I know we have a group of people who are on recording. I have somebody in from Tunisia. If ever anybody remembers Miriam, she came to a couple of the live events in Singapore. So Miriam will be watching under recording. Hi, Miriam. And there's a couple of other people out there as well under recording. So thank you so much for registering. Please again tell anybody if you have friends that want to join us. Please, I will have the recordings online. So when I send you the recording link, you can share that link with your friends as well, and they can register and get more links. Cool. All right. Have a good day, afternoon, everybody, wherever you are in the world.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.